I'm Susie Landolfi, and welcome to Be Crazy Well.
Been
So
up
bring him
since-
in. I want to bring in this guy that you wrote about in this book.
Up since 5:30, he's been feeding the horses and had to go to work.
You don't. There I am. I'm blurry.
You are blurry. You're, oh, there you go. There you are. There you are. I hope that when I use this blurry app, it just sort of like fills in all my wrinkles.
Oh, please. Me too. Me too. My
So
neck.
Linda, can you
Oh,
do
well.
okay? Hey, Robert, go get her a book to sit on or something. She's kind of low, or tilt her.
Not too short.
Yeah, tilt her camera down.
Those white cushions. It's in the Andrew's room.
Yeah. So how tall are you or short are you, Linda?
Well, 5'4"3/4", but I think the 3/4 has gone asunder in the last decade or two.
I say the same thing. So I say that I'm used to be 5'1", then I was 5 feet, and now I'm 4'11" 3/4. So I've now
You're
officially
tiny.
the average height of
Oh,
a
you're
first grader.
tiny. Wow.
So
Okay, we got some bolstering here.
oh, good.
got
Like, she needs a car
seat.
seat. So because we want to be able to see you.
The apple doesn't far from the
Hey.
tree. My mom used to sit on a phone book when she drove. She was 4'11"
right.
3/4.
But they don't have phone books anymore, Linda.
You know, I refer to it in my book. I say, you youngsters don't remember, but back in the day, we referred to them on the daily. They live now only in our memory, kind of like the road warrior.
That's right. So welcome everybody to Be Crazy Well. We already started. We've already started to record, Linda. That's how I do this. I like get them started so before you can get nervous. And we are with Linda Watson. And wait to hear the title of her book. For all of you that have, you know, made the mistake of getting married. and and then said, why'd I do that? And then you got divorced, and then you got married again. And you go, why do I keep doing this? Or some of you, like Linda, they've actually got married and stayed together. How long have you been together, Linda?
5.5 years. It was 35 last June.
35 and a half years last June. And then, Linda, what you decided to do, you are a PhD in psychology, so we can call you Dr. Linda. You decided to write a book. And what is the title of your book?
It's called Dr. Linda's Comedy Marriage Bootcamp.
They bring it back right there. Hold it right there. Okay, great. So say it one side, nice and slowly, so people can get it.
Dr. Linda's Comedy Marriage Bootcamp.
Yes, because if you did get married and you don't have a sense of humor, it's never going to last. That's for sure, right? People take it way too seriously. Now, Linda, I just want to tell everybody that I met you in the most wonderful way because near and dear to my heart, as everybody know, are wild horses. And most people would think that we met because we have the, you know, the degrees in psychology, but actually we met because we are enamored with horse poop. Lots
Horse
of
treasures.
horse treasure that we actually pick up and store somewhere. Like we actually, every time I pick up horse poop and the horses look at me, they just shake their head like, why are you, like, I can make more. Why do you need to pick that up? But anyway, so everybody knows I'm part of Lifesavers Wild Horse Rescue, or most people know. 27 years, over 400 horses, several thousand have gone through our wonderful ranch. And Jill Starr, who started it, which, I mean, how do you not have a name Starr? Like, that's her real name. And like, how do you not do something wonderful?
Right.
Name. Talk about pressure, right? Pressure. So she texts me and says, I met this woman. I know this woman, and she's been a real great supporter of ours for years. His name is Linda Watson, and she wrote a book. But wait, it gets better. What are you doing with the proceeds of the book, Linda? When people buy that comedy bootcamp, marriage comedy bootcamp, what's going to happen to the money?
Half of all the proceeds, and that's forever, are being donated to horse rescues.
Yes.
So I have a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm. You have a nonprofit. We have a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's called Nimchuck Equine Foundation. Originally, I wanted to open up my own rescue, but, you know, we live in Southern California. Land is like more expensive than gold. And so I started thinking back in 2021 is when I opened my foundation, my nonprofit, and I decided, better to support rescues already in existence, such as Jill's, because they're the ones that are, on the front line. They're rescuing these horses, they're giving them a home, and which means everything to me. So basically, half of all proceeds from the book are being donated to my nonprofit. 100% of that goes to rescues such as Lifesavers and some others. So.
And we can't thank you enough, because you have bought a whole truckload of hay for 400 horses. You have donated that to us in the past. I called Jill about it. I said, so what is she do? Oh my God, she bought a whole truckload of hay for us, and more and more. So first of all, I wanted to tell everybody that, and I wanted to thank you for all that you do for us and for the horses. Like, that's so important to us. And then, of course, what you did was you decided to do it in such a unique way, one that's near and dear to my heart. And you've done something that less than 50% of the people, adults in the world, do right now, or in America do right now, and that's stay married. Like, we're down to less than, right? So, myself included. So I want to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you to read some of the book. At first, I want to know what possessed you, other than that wonderful man that just stuck his head in, Robert. Tell me the beginnings of what made you want to write this book. And I'm going to sip a glass of wine while you're doing it.
Well, my reason was twofold: to raise money for the horses, and then also.
But you could have written a book about anything.
Well, typically when people want to make money and help horses, they do a horse-oriented theme.
Right.
Horses galloping through the prairie, the training, that type of thing. And I thought, that's fantastic. And that's going to appeal to 3% of the population, the hardcore horse lover like us. But I thought, what could I think of that's going to appeal to a much larger audience? And actually, for 12 years, I worked for a company that I worked in education, huge company, thousands of coworkers, and most of them were younger, and many of them were either, getting married, getting divorced, struggling in their relationships. And just kind of as the years went by, people started saying, well, talk to Linda. She's been married forever. She's going to give you kind of some weird advice, but listen to her because, and she's never going to repeat anything. And so that's basically kind of the foundation of this is, all these stories, basically interviewing, hundreds and hundreds of people, couples, individuals. And so I thought, this is a good way to make money for the horses. But also I think, if someone stays married because of reading my book, it's going to make me really happy, because I feel sometimes the advice folks are given, it's kind of the same thing we hear: communicate, just communicate. And in a good relationship,
they forget to say communicate kindly and honestly. Like communicate means I just have to lie well. That could mean that, right? I forgot the other thing.
So I use a lot of real life scenarios. I have success stories at the end. I go from A to Z. It's basically, A to Z, and there's different scenarios and a lot of comedy thrown in, but it's really kind of funny and irreverent. And instead of chapters like, oh, just communicate, be best friends, I tell it like it is. I'm like, there's times you're sick of them. You can't stand them. They're driving you nuts. And how do you get around that? How do you get past that? And, what are kind of some good techniques? And so instead of chapters like just communicate and so on and so forth, it's chapters like married to an alien, mother-in-law straight out of hell, he's already got a mama.
I love that one. So you did this because, and the reason I wanted you to tell this story is you didn't write this book out of isolation of just your experience, nor did you write it because you have a degree in psychology. You were at work and people were asking you questions. You were in the milieu, in the front lines, and people kept coming and you said, well, and I think you first wrote the book fairly seriously. So tell me the transition from serious to comedy.
So yes, originally, I originally started the book in 2016. That's when I started compiling all the stories, putting them together, came up with the A to Z idea, and started interviewing some of my success story couples. And I really intended it to be a serious marriage advice book, very serious advice. And that's how I wrote it the first time. And then after COVID, right after COVID, I was ready to turn to the publisher. I just started talking to people, just kind of like at the boba shop or wherever, and saying, do you want to read a serious marriage advice book? And 100% of people said, we just had COVID. We don't want to be serious. And I thought, this is not going to fly. I need to rewrite this book. I need to throw in a lot of comedy. And so that's what I did. I took a lot of the same principles, but I put in a lot of goofy, silly stuff. For example, chapters like when a man marries his mistress. Because, the French say when a man marries his mistress, he creates a job opening. So I tell true story. Gavin from Laguna Beach with movie star hair and his, it's a little excerpt. Maybe I'll read later.
Yeah. Actually, let's do that now. Because we can talk about it being funny, or you can start to read some of what's in this book. And I'm really excited about this. I'm so grateful. It's like two things I love the most: psychology and horses. And I even have a glass of wine. You're the first time I've had a glass of wine while I'm doing a podcast, because I figured, oh my God, this is the perfect time to have a glass of wine.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, one little quick excerpt, I talk about unity. So unity is I say we all want to succeed in achieving unity. I myself fall short, very short, even shorter than my actual height of 5'4". In 2003, when Andrea, that's our daughter, we have one daughter, when Andrea was 8, our little family visited Hawaii. At the time, Andrea loved to jump on the bed. That was her favorite thing. As soon as we got to the hotel room, she says, I'm going to jump on the bed. She starts hopping on the bed. Well, Robert told her it was rude, and he told her to stop hopping on the bed. I didn't see, and this is where, typical marriage, what's the big deal? I still don't see what the big deal was, but I spent my whole childhood jumping on beds. So I said to her real quietly, as soon as Daddy gets in the shower, jump on the bed as much as you want. It would have been perfect, except at age 8, she was too young for this kind of collusion. So she jumped on the bed, happy as a clam. As soon as he gets out of the shower, she tattles on me. Mommy said, so first 3 days of the trip, he was really annoyed with me because he said I didn't have his back, and he was kind of right. So kind of like, that's sort of like a unity thing.
Yeah, that's right. So this idea, though, let's go to that, because that's such a good example. So Robert was told or brought up in his family. Now, this is a question. Did he used to let her jump on the bed at home?
Yeah, that was fine.
Okay, that was fine. So see what happened to Robert when he went out. He was from a family. It's kind of like get dressed for getting on a plane. I'm so old. We used to like have to dress up to fly, to go to church and all. Now everybody wears jeans. But the point is that he had a demarcation. So the child is like, wait a minute, I jump on the bed at home, so I'm only 8. But now we just happen to be here in this hotel and I can't. And he said it was rude because it wasn't our bed. It's not our home. So what was so an interesting, he said, you don't have my back. And you just said something wonderful. She goes, and he was right. I didn't. Because I couldn't understand why she could do it at home, but not here. I couldn't understand why it was rude. And so did you ever discuss it before? Did you ever talk about it later? Did she come back and jump on the bed?
Probably we talked about it. And I guess I apologized, and of course I do talk a lot about being able to apologize, kind of humbling yourself to like, oh, geez, yeah, I guess, you don't want to apologize. Now, to be honest, we've gotten really lazy. In our electric youth, we could prolong arguments. Now, sometimes we look at each other and I'm thinking, did he apologize last time? Maybe I'll just, just to get it over with, because we're tired, we're middle-aged. I'm
8 o'clock, I want to go to bed.
But I do talk a lot about unity with kids, because that united front, because, for example, kids are world-class eavesdroppers.
That's right.
If you're talking about Aunt Pamela's affair with the church pastor, little Gunther knows every detail because he's been creeping down that hallway like a ninja. He's 40 pounds. He knows everything. Kids are world-class eavesdroppers. We all know this. So
yeah, so that's really important. So unity means that if you all of a sudden you're in a hotel with Robert and you didn't know at 8 years, all of a sudden he was going to take a left turn because she was jumping on beds at home. That idea of being able to say, oh, hold on, hang on, Dad has a concern about this. I got to go talk to Dad and find out why that's rude. Right. And I love that you talk about unity because we don't think about that. Sometimes I would say, listen, your dad doesn't like it, doesn't bother me, and A-N-D, never but unless you're talking about someone's ass, but A-N-D, and I'm going to support him on this one because I don't know why. He might have a better reason than I do, and I don't know it yet, and I'll let you know. But that idea of
Yeah.
unity, and I work a lot with combat veterans, retired professional athletes, and that idea of unity, it's imperative. Your life depends on unity. The winning the game depends on unity. And yet we can't do it, in our own personal life. So I love that. And I love that you looked at it and you thought about it and you went, oh, wait a minute. That is important. Do you have other things you want to read from the book?
Oh, so I mentioned that when a man marries his mistress.
Yeah, we definitely gotta read that one.
I'll read a little bit of it. When a man marries his mistress, he creates a job opening. This wise phrase is generally attributed to the French. Why are the French so darn clever? Probably they've been around for thousands of years. Not the same ones, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Now let's relay the tale of Gavin hailing from Laguna Beach, California. He was 35, incredibly handsome with movie star hair, successful, charming, big man on campus. Gavin and his first wife, Elizabeth, were married for 2 blissful years when he fell hopelessly in love with his secretary, Julia. Elizabeth was heartbroken, wanted to stay together. He couldn't possibly live without Julia, and he begged Elizabeth for a speedy divorce. Gavin and Julia get married. I'm condensing a little bit. 7 months later, the precise moment his divorce finalized. They were wed for 3 delightful years with a baby boy named Aiden when Julia received an anonymous letter in the mail. The papyrus card revealed Gavin was dating their cul-de-sac neighbor, Vanessa, on the side. Julia deeply suspected Vanessa herself had sent the note. Julia's rage was tempered by grudging admiration that Vanessa had actually selected such beautiful stationery with the requisite gold hummingbird adorning the envelope. So Julia and Gavin briefly reconciled, but then they split up when she discovered his credit card bill with stupendous charges for gifts for Vanessa. Gavin, why on earth did you not replace the shredder when it finally broke down from sheer exhaustion? Too late for regrets. Ah, well. Then he marries wife Vanessa, third wife, 1 year later. Amazingly, the turnout for their wedding was substantial. Truth be told, 90% of attendees were her friends. So now, fast forward 2 glorious years of marriage. They're still wed, but only because Vanessa finds a way to turn a blind eye to Gavin's mistress, Cassandra. She found out about her 6 months ago. Understandably, there was drama, but she's sticking it out, at least for now. She realizes, as perhaps the first 2 wives did not, Gavin will always have someone on the side. Moreover, he has sharply detoured from his previous MO. He's not insisting on marrying Cassandra. Instead, he deeply wishes to remain with Vanessa. Even a true romantic like Gavin must be practical sometimes, because he shells out 2 massive alimonies. To top it off, whenever Vanessa suspects he's been seeing Cassandra on the sly, she energetically hits them all for another round of her favorite new sport, revenge shopping. His only saving grace, she wears very high heels, and she has not yet commenced that hobby, which is the most expenditure per hour, online shopping. She still goes to the mall. She's old school, but she wears the high heels. She doesn't go totally broke yet.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Now you would say that maybe he doesn't believe in marriage, but actually he's keeping.
He does.
He does. He
loves being married. Very romantic.
Exactly. True romantic. Michelle Obama came out with the honesty of go, I need to tell you, there was a time, I think it was when he was running for a senator, but early in their marriage, they had the 2 girls. She goes, I didn't like him for 10 years. She said, I don't like him. He wasn't helping with the kids. I remember she was his boss. Like when he went into the law firm, she was senior to him. So now all of a sudden, he's off and running, doing his thing, and she's home with the kids and thinking, I really don't like him right now. Now, I want to talk to you about the idea of like and love. Do you have any thoughts about the difference and how much they are part of a marriage and which one's more important or going? I mean, it seems to me like she figured out that she could love him and not like him at the same time. and wait till she liked him again.
You know what this reminds me of is, oh my gosh. Pamela and Craig are one of my success stories at the end. And she talks about Pamela and Craig, they've been married almost as long as us. And it talks about the number one piece of advice from this couple: try to be each other's friends. Don't ever let that go away. The love will always be there, but it ebbs and flows. The friendship always needs to be there. Laughing a lot and being giddy like little kids is great as well. Pamela and Craig have been happily married for over 31 years. Their kids are now, they're empty nest. And so, and this particular couple, they take walks almost every evening so that they can talk and catch up. And I don't know if my husband and I could take a 2-hour walk every night. We'd run out of stuff to say, but you know, they're fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
What have you done in your marriage that you know, both you and Robert know really works? Like you had to find some things that didn't, then you had to duke it out, and then you had to commit to some things that did. What are some of the things that worked?
well, it's humiliating, but I share a story that when we were married 2 years, his mom was driving me nuts. We were not getting along. And I was 27. Some girls are very mature at 27. I was very childish. I had lost my mom at 18, and I think I just didn't have enough guidance.
Yeah.
And so I used my genealogy as an excuse for my bad temper. Oh, I'm half Italian and half Ukrainian. It's a volatile mix. So I can't, be responsible for having bad temper. So I'm setting the table and I'm ranting. We're arguing, but really it was me. Just, your mom's driving me nuts. And so he said something to try and placate me. And he said, oh, don't let her bother you. And I just lost it. I said, I've had it with your mom, and dropped the plate. Million shards of glass everywhere. It was a very nice plate. And he says, I can't believe you did that. I said, you want another one? By this time I had a full head of steam, dropped another one. So he took his car keys and left. I'm sure he thought he married a complete nut job. And I went to my girlfriend's house expecting girl to girl solidarity. And she agreed. My mother-in-law was kind of a royal pain in the arse, so to speak. But she said, Robert's a really nice husband. You're kind of out of line, Linda, which was good for me to hear that. And so the next day I went to work, came home, and we had a talk. And he said the perfect thing to scare me straight. He said, what if we had a child someday and you were throwing things and a piece of glass flew in their eye? So I'm bawling by this time. I mean, it really was the perfect thing to say. And so I promised to never throw or break anything again. And, 33 years have gone by and I haven't, because I think in my situation, it was good that happened early in the marriage, because, and I put it in the book because, as humiliating as it is, I do put a lot of my embarrassing stories in, and other people's too with different names, but mine, I use my real name, is so folks see, like those people that say, oh, we get along perfectly all the time. We're just like two soulmates.
Get out of me. I don't believe them, and that scares me. It's like I had a perfect childhood. I don't believe that either.
Right? It's fishy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think definitely kind of, admitting, and we both have over the years, admitting when we were wrong,
Oh, I think
saying,
that's
okay,
absolutely top of the list. Like being able to, I call it own your shit.
Yeah.
Own your shit.
Yeah.
Right? Just own your shit. Okay. And I want to say something else about that story that I think is phenomenal. When we first get married or live with someone even, or get in a relationship with someone, we're bringing our training from our childhood. So in your family, yelling and screaming, getting mad, even dropping a plate could have been considered normal. Like that's just sort
Not
of
the place, but yelling.
Yeah, yelling. It's just sort of like every day. Like you expected, people supported it, everybody did it, and then usually many times we marry someone who's got something we don't have, which is like calm or emotional regulation, a little more stoic, whatever. And I'm really touched by how Robert, and then you were able to, he came back and he left because it was dangerous. I mean, it was not good for him to be around someone who was throwing glass right now, right? So he was justified. And trust me, I've had my own moments. What I love about the story is that he thought about an investment in the future. He didn't say, you're going to hurt yourself. He didn't say, you're going to hurt me. He didn't say that's not okay for you to do because, and that you're bad or you're wrong or you're crazy. He said, if we have children. Now, I can't even tell you how important that line is because they didn't ask to come here. You're building a partnership, and then you bring this truly vulnerable being into a partnership that may or may not be safe. And for him to say that, and not only that, for him to say it, and for you to be able to go, oh, yeah, that meant at that moment, you guys started investing in the partnership to also be parents. So I just want to commend you. So as much as it's humiliating, it's so smart. It's so smart because I can't tell you many people get married and then the shit hits the fan and they can't figure it out, but they've already had 3 kids. And now the kids have to go through the war and the divorce of breaking up that they didn't ask for. They didn't ask for that. So marriage can also times be so much more than just the 2 adults. If you're going to have kids, and not everybody has to have them, that's something that's really important. So I commend you, Linda.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, and I do bring up in the book that the genealogy was kind of a sorry excuse because my mom was my excuse was like, oh, I'm Italian. Like that's a big excuse. My mom was 100% Italian, and she managed to keep from baking a single plate in her whole lifetime. So, but there wasn't anything getting broken in my house, but there was definitely yelling growing up.
Yeah.
But then in his house, it was more kind of the silent treatment and like his mom would roll her eyes and sigh heavily. So I talk about that kind of dynamic in the book that sometimes, those nonverbal.
Yeah. Yep. It can be dismissive. It can be as hurtful, if not more so. I talk about partners. Did you notice or anything more in the book? I want you to pick out other things in the book that you want to share with us. I call it yeah, but parenting and yeah, but partnering. What I mean by that is, look, honey, look at the cake I made. Oh, that's great. But why did you put the frosting all? Honey, I just got the oil change here, but why did you get that? Wait, didn't they tell you? So I just wanted to know what else in this book have you discovered that you discovered before you wrote the book. So what did you put in that you knew was absolutely so important because so many people go through it and do it?
I talked a lot about gratitude and appreciation. There's a big thank you section. And I actually didn't highlight it, but I can find it. I talk about a little section of, quickly, I have a teenage date night. And just one little funny thing, basically, teenage date night works like you and your spouse create a date you would have enjoyed as teenagers. And so I say, as 17-year-olds, and I say, if like me, you were a dateless wonder in high school, this will be particularly gratifying. So it's things like go to the amusement park and get Sonic. But I do have, let's see here, there's a little section called What Motivates Them. And let me find it real quickly. Because, okay. Oh, well, real quickly, we've all done it versus what were you thinking? So the first statement promotes harmony. The second one alienates. So let's say your spouse screws up something.
Okay, because I'm following you now. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I say, I give this little example. I say, as of this writing, Robert's at the desert riding quads with his buddies. Let it be known, I made my fabulous best brownies, Ghirardelli, extra special from scratch. On the morning he was going to leave, I'm like, don't forget your brownies, Robert. Oh no, he swore he wouldn't. I offered to put them in the truck. No, I got them. So I get home that night. There's the goddamn brownies sitting on the counter.
Oh,
so yeah. Might I add, those blasted brownies Ultimo truly taunted me all weekend long from their little kitchen counter perch. Eat me, Linda, eat me now, screaming at me. So, but that night when he calls me to say he's out of the desert, I don't mention the brownies. Early in the marriage, the first sentence would have been, "Wait, you forgot your brownies."
I spent all this time making them. You said you would. I offered to put them in the truck. Blah, 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 blah.
Right, the guilt. So now at this stage, I didn't mention it at all. Right before he hung up, he goes, "Oh, forgot the brownies." I go, don't worry. He goes, oh, shit, I forgot. I go, we've all done it. So we've all done it, promotes harmony. It assigns no guilt. It kind of lets your partner off the hook. What were you thinking is really detrimental to a positive relationship, because people know when they F up.
That's right. They know that. What were you thinking, or how, like, well, that was so stupid. Do you know what? So my grandson was probably like 3-4 years old, just going to nursery school. And I realized he was going to hear a lot of things at nursery school. So I said, you know, Logan, I need to tell you something now that you're in school and you're going to listen to a lot of things. And I said, in our household, we don't say the S word. And he looked right at me, Linda, and said, you mean shit? A big smile on his face. I go, no, we can say shit. We can't say stupid. Which is exactly what you were just talking about. That idea of putting others down in order to make us feel better, as if we've never done that before. Right? That's really something that I think is so important. It's so important to not be dismissive, to not be self-righteous. I mean, that's another one.
Yeah, because you want to feel like your partner's in your corner. And that is one thing that was my success stories at the end. They've all been married 25 years or more, very different personalities. Some of them had huge struggles. One couple lost a child. One couple lost their house in 2008. I myself have a giant broke chapter at the beginning of the book, which is really embarrassing for me, but I threw it in because we went completely broke twice, not just once, twice. And I feel like that's a huge struggle for a lot of couples. And so maybe if they see kind of what we went through, it'll make them feel a little better, or just, you know, that feeling of not being alone. But it's one of those things where, like, he spends 3 hours mowing the lawn, and when he comes in, instead of saying, oh my gosh, honey, thank you so much, that's so wonderful. Well, it's about time. So it's those little things over the years that can cause a relationship either to strengthen, and you feel like this person's really in my corner. And that's what my success stories all talk about. They talk about things like humor, looking on the bright side, and always wanting to see the positive in your spouse, because I believe a good relationship could really decline in 3 months to, like, or a bad relationship, you know, and I make it really clear in the book, if there's any physical violence, forget that. But with many situations where it's just like over the years, kind of an eroding of respect and courtesy and that friendship, those things can come back.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you just said, because I was going to mention this. One of the things I wasn't able to do because of my, you know, childhood, my trauma and all that stuff, I didn't know, because we grew up in the Hallmark Lifetime movies, you know, everything is supposed to be romance and you're supposed to be swept off your feet. Little did we know that's just that's just adrenaline running through. It's supposed to leave after a while, and then you're supposed to look at each other and go, do we really want to build something now, before it was just given to us? But the point I was making was, I didn't know how to base a partnership on principles. Everything was about what I thought and what I felt. So there's thoughts, feelings, and actions. That's the only 3 things humans can do. And I never thought or realized that I could make decisions based on principles, even and irregardless of what I think and I feel. I always tell people, most of what you think about yourself or feel about yourself was either done to you or told to you. Like, you were brought up by somebody, so, in a family and all of that. So you were indoctrinated. Like you said, what are you, stupid? Like, that's an indoctrination of thinking about yourself and feeling. So the idea of basing, and you just did it. You just talked about respect. So regardless of how you think or feel at that moment that he left the brownies, like, it's like, I worked so hard. You could go through all these thoughts and feeling. I worked so hard on those brownies. He said he would do it. He didn't keep his word. You know what I mean? He doesn't appreciate me. He doesn't care you could have gone through a whole litany of thoughts and feelings about those brownies, and then based your reaction to him and your behavior towards him on those. Or you could say, oh, I've forgotten plenty of stuff in my life, and my value isn't based on my brownies. And I'm going to just talk respectful to him. Does that sound about right? I mean, like what you were talking about, respect and friendship and kindness.
Definitely. And it's difficult because sometimes it's easier to just be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But I talk a lot about things like positivity and gratitude, and I talk about gratitude being so important. I keep a gratitude journal. I've done it for years and years, and I went through a little hiatus where I stopped, and every night I write down 3 things, and I say, if you're really tired, if you're just exhausted at bedtime, you just don't have time, you could think of something and draw a little representative squiggle. You still get the same psychological benefit.
Mhm.
But when I stopped doing a gratitude journal, I think it was for about 6 months, it was hard at first to come up with 3 things. But then when you get back in the rhythm, I never just write down 3 things. It's always 5 or 6, 7, or sometimes just a little squiggle if I'm really tired, because gratitude and appreciation, think of the people you know. Think of the people you know who are really miserable. I have a friend whose husband is always miserable. He has been miserable since I've known her. We've been friends forever. And he never looks at, wow, he gets to live in San Diego. It's a great climate. He's got health. He's got a nice wife. He's got nice kids. It's always what he doesn't have. And always the boss is miserable. And so I think a lot of it is how people think of it, because if you have an attitude of looking at everything that you don't have in your life, it's easier to be miserable.
Yeah. It really,
And that reflects on your relationship, of course.
yeah, it changes your chemistry. Like it literally changes your health, it changes your chemistry, changes your brain chemistry, and it becomes almost like an addiction because you're afraid to be positive. You're afraid to look at something that you can be grateful for fear that it's going to be gone. So it's like a protection that actually turns on you. And it's a protection that actually hurts you and hurts the other people around you. And so I really appreciate what you're saying about that idea of being grateful. One of my friends talk about marriage and how it can go. So he's not a friend. He's somebody I met by working with combat veterans. His name is Charlie Plum. And he was with John McCain and the others at the Hanoi Hilton. They were Vietnam they were Air Force pilots, and they got shot down and then they got captured and they were in a prison of war camp for 8 years. He was there for 8. I think John McCain was for 5. I don't remember exactly. Anyway, and I had the honor to meet Charlie. I actually met 3 of them. And I'm telling you this story because here he is in an 8-foot cell for 8 years and being tortured, and they had to figure out a way to communicate by little scratching noises and all of that. And he was one of the ones that made it through and came home. And he came home and found out that his wife had married somebody else. She thought he was dead and they couldn't get any information about him. And she waited as long as she could. And then she married someone else. So when I think about people who have been able to come back from even the hurt of marriage, there's something to be said about that as well. There's something to be said about, and he eventually married someone else and he's still running strong. He's just a remarkable man. And I thought, boy, that's gratitude. That's like understanding. He didn't get mad at her. He just was like, okay, I get it. There's a point where we can't control everything about the other person and about the situation. I talked to someone today that said, my marriage might be over now just because we've grown. I'm not mad at her. I love her. I'm not in love with her. I'm not, we don't have that much more in common. And I'm very grateful I spent these years with her and had these wonderful kids with her. And it might be time for me to go do something else in my life. It was like, wow. Right? Because if you're going to write a book about marriage, you have to write a book about, this is your next one, about how you leave a marriage without collateral damage. I am so inundated with so many kids that have gone through such trauma, not because their father and mother separated and didn't stay married, it's because of how they left. Did you come across that at all, or?
I mean, yeah, and definitely it's, and but of course I do even mention in the book, there's times when, we all know people that they've remarried and they're so much happier. So there's definitely, and I talk about, not discouraging remarriage, but for example, if someone's annoying, I kind of make the point that, wife number one was, cheap and flirted with your best friend, but wife number two crashed the Audi and accidentally let on that she detests your golden retriever, Molly, and then husband number one, flirted with your girlfriends and couldn't hold a steady job, but husband number two is rude to your mom and spends money like water. So I'm kind of like, not to discourage remarriage, but if you're still on your first marriage and you're thinking of getting out because they're annoying, the whole point being they all are. But I do have a section where I talk about irresistible.
I'll read that. Can you read that? Did you mark that one?
The book has an actual boot camp. And what the boot camp is, it's an 8-step, and that I don't want to divulge too much, but it's because it's a little intricate, but it's 8 steps that you do for 1 month, where literally if someone is like, I'm done, I'm calling divorce our ass, I'm out of here, I don't want to stay in this relationship anymore. I say, you know what? Give my boot camp 30 days. Just do the steps for 30 days. You don't have to eat low carb or keto. That's a bonus. You can eat whatever you want, but you do the boot camp. And that's kind of like where our cover comes from. So I'm hovering on the wedding cake like it's a spaceship.
There it is.
You can do crunches. And
have you ever taken some couples and done a baseline, because you're PhD, and had them go through the boot camp and then find out the impact at the end? Have you done that yet?
So when I worked at my company I was at for 12 years, different components of the boot camp, I would recommend. I only put it really together toward the end, but its success rate was about 53%. And of course, this is, casual. I didn't run any numbers. I didn't do real statistics, but and then of course I make it fun. I say, picture yourself as, Richard Gere in Officer and Gentleman, or Goldie Hawn in Private Benjamin, or if you're a younger person, maybe like Jessica Chastain in Zero Dark 30, or Chris Helmsworth in The Extraction, and I just make it fun. I say, you got this boot camp. You don't have to hike around. We got golf carts at the ready with beverage service. So it's like a whole virtual boot camp. And that wall thing, no one's asking you to climb over that. That's just in the movies. You don't have to do that. But what I talk about is irresistible. Okay. So irresistible. We've all been told endlessly, in order to remain happily married, a couple needs to communicate. We're not going to dispute this here, but perhaps communication is sometimes overrated. Think of it this way. Couples don't fall in love and get married because they communicate well. Men, do you go up to your buddies and go, oh my gosh, I'm so in love with Jessica. She's such a great communicator. No, it's you fall in love passionately. It's how she looks at you. It's the color of her eyes when she kisses you. I mean, you just can't live without her, right? You absolutely, it's like Oxycontin. And so I talk about, of course, because being in love is one of the most narcissistic adventures a human being can undertake. When you're smitten with someone, it's such an incredible sensation. You're glowing brilliantly with happiness. It's all about you. I sound like Peaky Blinders. You know how they go, you. So it's all about you. You're so in love. You transcended every life. You're floating in heaven. It's kind of like that saying, no one's perfect until you fall in love with them. At this blissful stage, even if your spouse does something strange or annoying, you're in denial. You can't bear to, tarnish that image. Right. You get married, everything's heaven, it's blissful. Then sadly, inevitably over time, 2-3 years, you kind of, unless you're long distance, you can prolong it, you kind of lose that infatuation. And then I say, and you'll like this, I say, tragically, your marriage begins to lose its bright glow, and that euphoric feeling your partner is irresistible begins eroding, just like PCH in Malibu after a severe rainstorm. I lived in Malibu before. I'm very familiar with Malibu. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
it washes away. It's just gone.
I say maybe it's unpaid bills, screaming kids, leaky roofs, whatever that is, that idealized, beautiful, adored, and worshiped creature you could not live without is now displaying numerous flaws. The end result is, as of now, that perfect angel is working your last nerve. Disillusioned spouses frequently describe this sorry come down by stating they no longer feel they're in love. And so I say, okay, let's now uncover the meatloaf and potatoes of this whole chapter. And what I talk about is how to get back that feeling, that irresistible feeling. And there's actual steps I give.
Yeah, there's actions. So, yeah, you're saying actions help create thoughts and feelings. People don't understand that's how we actually work.
Well,
So
what I say is,
yeah,
what I say is, so what I do is, first I say, to really grasp this, let's look at the flip side of the coin. I'm going to list attributes that detract from the irresistible factor, and I list them. And things like gross personal habit. These are things people actually told me, and this is a lot for those 12 years at that company. Gross personal habits, poor hygiene, bossiness, argumentativeness, irritating habits like spilling food on the counter and doing a half-assed job cleaning up, actual quotes. Stinginess, doesn't listen to you, looks at their phone when you talk, complains, doesn't pull their share of the income, huge one, huge, enormous.
Yeah.
Leaves your waiter or waitress a stingy tip thinking you won't notice. That actually came up repeatedly.
Oh my God.
Never wants to have sex, always has excuses, too tired, never wants to do it spur of the moment. Sex came up a lot, big one over the years. And so what I say is, these are the things that detract from the irresistible factor. But then I list things: holding hands, surprising your spouse with flowers. If someone bullies you and you don't speak up for yourself, you don't take it out on your spouse. I talk about things like little couples with little kids getting out without the kids, the most important thing.
Yeah.
Talk about sex being important. I got a couple chapters on that. Was not intending to. Originally, the whole book was very, very G-rated. And then friends of ours, we had dinner and I was telling them about the book. And she said, Linda, where's your chapter? I go, oh, no, I can't. Oh, I'm really modest and private. And that night I started thinking, my parents are passed away. Aunts and uncles are all gone. Who do I have to scandalize?
That's right.
So I reached out to my wildest girlfriends, and let's just say, Susie, there's stuff I didn't even know about. I mean,
love it.
Wow.
Love it. Yeah,
wow.
I was talking to someone today too. Here's another thing that I think is important. You have that infatuation. It's chemical, it's thoughts and feelings, it's actions. I get that. I've had it before. And it's supposed to go away because you can't live on it. Can't live on it, right? You won't get any shit done. You won't go out and mow the lawn if you're still in bed having sex and then you're going out and spending and you're being romantic all the time. So it's supposed to end in order for you to be able to pay the rent and pay the mortgage and things like that. And that's when people go, oh, I don't have that thought and feeling anymore. So my first degree is in theater. So I said, oh, so what was it like the first, year? Oh my God, he'd knock at the door and then I'd come down and he'd say how beautiful I look. And, I got all dressed up, or, I'd come into the bedroom after coming from the bathroom and I'd have something. And I said, oh, so you wore costumes? And she went, yeah. Oh, okay. You had props? Yeah.
Wow. Nurse and warlock.
Yeah, yeah. And I said, okay. And you were extra special kind to each other and support open doors and things. So you actually had stage directions. That's called the stage direction. Character walks over and opens door of the car. I said, oh, that's easy. That's just theater. I've actually said to couples, look, if there's really deep-seated stuff that you've got to talk about, you got to sit down like you could even do it like you're in a lawyer's office or with a judge. You could have someone there and you got to duke it out and get it uncovered. I get that. Afterwards, though, you can have theater. So I've actually said to couples, you're going to go out on a date? Yeah. I said, well, don't get dressed in the same bedroom, in the same bathroom. Really? And I go, you didn't do that when you were dating, right? And I said, so I'm going to ask the guy, go use the downstairs bathroom if you have one, or a friend's house, and then come to the house and ring the doorbell and pick her up. Or two men, I don't care if it's two guys doing it or two women. Like, do something you used to do to encourage that connection, that romantic connection with one another that you weren't doing with anybody else. Here's another thing, that whole idea of sex. So Linda, one of the things I know about life, we have had the movies decide that we get dressed up, we go out for the night, we have a dinner, and then we go home and have sex after. It's the piece de resistance after the date, right? Once you're having sex with someone and you have a date, my theory is is have the sex first at 6 o'clock. Have your shower, put your lingerie on, have great sex, and then go celebrate with a dinner. Because I don't know about you, late at night and a full belly, not a good idea to have sex. So I said, wait a minute, I think we got this ass backwards just because of movies, right? And I've actually asked couples to do that and say, see how it worked. And they went, oh my God, it was so much better. We had this great sex and then we were hungry. And then we got dressed up and then we went out, and we got something to drink and we came home, we were tired and we went to bed. We slept. So little things like that. I mean, you in a marriage can do anything you want. And I think what you've done so brilliantly is people are filled with fear and sadness. And fear and sadness from the past, fear and sadness from what just is happening in their relationship now and from their childhood and what they went through with their parents. So what happens is fear and sadness doesn't create joy. Fear and sadness, when it's unwitnessed and unprocessed, creates anger. That's where anger comes from, unwitnessed, unprocessed fear and sadness. What you've done so well is that you've asked us to consider creating more joy, right? So that idea of respect and kindness and laughter and letting things go, you are making an atmosphere that can have more joy in it. But if you're living all the time anxious and depressed or fear and sadness, joy can't get in there. They can't. So when you go back to the plates, I mean, you were sad and scared about like what was happening here. Like I'm in this situation and I don't like it and it doesn't feel good and right. And I'm gonna let it all hang out. And he said, yeah, that's not going to help if we have kids. And you went, oh, the joy of kids. What
At
is your
that stage, I was like, don't even talk to me about kids yet. I'm not ready. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
I was going to say, how old is your daughter? And what does she think of the book?
28. She actually, bless her, she edited it. She's a horse lover. She's Andrea. She's, really, really good with, details. So she proofread and edited the book for me. She likes it. She got a kick out of it. She likes, I throw in some really kind of retro stuff. I mean, I throw in this thing about how in college, good thing we had no technology because we used to play a dynasty game. So you take a shot of your drink when your character came on. I always wanted to be Linda Evans with the big shoulder pads and the hair. Every time I was John Forsythe, every time. And then on commercials, we dance around to Der Kommissar and she blinded me with science. And luckily there's no technology then because the videos would just be humiliating. But I do have actually a section on, let's see here, fatal flaw, where I say, we've strived for a tone of utmost levity throughout this book. Tragically, only sick and sad humor may be found. How can it be possibly otherwise when we're discussing the horror, the nightmare on Elm Street of fatal flaws? Here goes. Tragically, at some point in your marriage, you'll realize to your utmost dismay and chagrin, your spouse has at least one of what we shall christen a fatal flaw. If you're shaking your head because you haven't yet seen one, rest assured you haven't been married long enough. So I give some examples of couples. And basically, I say things like, it's crucial to introduce this most excruciating topic. Wide-eyed youngsters have stars in their eyes at the beginning of the marriage, but then it's inevitable. The fatal flaw calamity hits them like a 2-ton rhino. They feel betrayed when it doesn't improve. They mistakenly believe if their spouse loved them enough, they would simply eliminate the flaw. Years go by, the defect remains. It's almost undoubtedly worse with age. Then they want to turn in their spouse for a recall. They can even call the local car dealer. Can I drop them off? Later, after the divorce, they swear they were blindsided by their ex's hideous defect. However, unless the couple had eloped after just 2 months, they knew about the flaw, but naively believed they could eliminate it. By all means, give it your best shot. So I say, if you can live with it.
Yeah.
But
I call those like red flags, and you see the red flag and you take it and you bleach it white and put it back up like it never existed, right? Yeah.
But we were talking about, yes, exactly. We were talking about romance. I have a big section about the quickie. Basically, you sum it up. Hey, honey, Stranger Things starts in 17 minutes. you know, Jameson and Ashley are asleep. Come on, we got 14 minutes. Let's get it on, baby. So it's kind of like that. I talk about the quickie because face it, when people have little kids, things go by the wayside. And so it's maybe better than nothing.
And a quickie could be really good too, because it demands that you both learn how to help each other have an orgasm quickly. That's a great skill, right? Not just out of one person because they're quick, but you go, no, this is what we both can do for one another and get it down to like 6.5 minutes. We can both get to orgasm. That's a wonderful challenge to figure out.
Well, and timing is a thing, and that's what I do. I do have a sex chapter and an orgasm chapter, and they're pretty glorious. And there's some real so women, they've chosen to remain anonymous. They've given their best tips, and like I say, there's some dazzling stuff I had never heard of. But there's a little thing called "He's Already Got a Mama." Do you want me to read just a tiny bit?
Yeah, just a tad for that. Then we got about another 3 to 5 minutes, so go for it.
Oh, okay. So basically, he's already got a mama. And what I say is, helicopter parents, you know, you see them at the private schools, helicopter wives, they're kind of similar. Let's take a peek at this unique dynamic. We're dubbing it the mama syndrome. He's already got a mama. For some reason, this statement sounds much more charming with the Southern accent. While he's already got a mama. Her name's Loretta Sue. She lives 2 states away in South Carolina. You, young married lady, on the other hand, have a very important role in his life. It sure ain't mama. So when you're babying that man, remind him about every little thing, making sure he takes his vitamins, scolding him for not getting enough sleep, you're kind of treating him just like a little tiny toddler. And Savannah Claire, what happens next? He'll truly appreciate all that pampering at first. However, in a country minute, he's going to rebel on you like a 12-year-old boy who's mom with his skateboard. Ladies, listen up. What are those thoughtful caring gestures? Remind him to take his vitamins. Warning him about the upcoming freeway exit. Scolding him if he doesn't get enough sleep. Exactly are you doing? Well, you're putting yourself right smack dab in the role of mama. And gals, we're going to put you bluntly. No man wants to get romantic and down and dirty with mama. So this will backfire on you faster than a Silverado truck going down that bumpy Twilight, Mississippi road. So
I love it. What a great way to end. I love that. And I have a lot of friends from the South, and I love it because they say y'all. They invite everybody. It's like no one's left out. I love it. Linda, we just can't thank you enough for those of us that are so appreciative what you've done and supported Lifesavers and the other horse rescues. We're all in this together. So I want to thank you and for your wonderful book. Tell us the title again. And what we'll do is when we post this, we're going to put it in the title, you know, in the description of the podcast so that people can find you, and also your website or any place else we can get the book. Please text me all that and we'll make sure we put it in, but tell us the title again.
Absolutely. It's on Amazon and it's Dr. Linda's Comedy Marriage Bootcamp.
Okay. There it is right there. Okay. Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you so much for having me on your show, Susie.
Oh, and you can take this podcast, and we'll air it soon. It'll be like next week. And by all means, feel free to put the link on your website or anything like that so you can share it anywhere that you want.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Bless you. And by the way, she's got 3 Mustangs, 3 beautiful Mustangs. And if you want, we can use those pictures as well and let people know about these magnificent horses and why we're all so much in love with them. Okay. Thank you. Bless you. Oh, I should say one last thing. Be crazy well. That's the name of the podcast. And the song is by Kalvin Love, and it's called Be Your Best Self. So everybody, until next time, be crazy well. Do it.